All right, I am pleased to be joined by Tristin from the Bandwagon Football Podcast. How's it going, Tristin?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you? Thanks
I
for inviting me on your podcast. Really excited to talk some football. Um, I'm from a German football podcast, so most of you guys probably can't listen to my podcast if you're trying to do that. And then also sorry for my German accent, but still excited to talk football.
No, thanks again for coming on. It was kind of a short notice, but again, thanks for coming on. Let's start. Is there anything else or before we start talking about the NFL, is there anything else you want to add about your podcast and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, we're a German football podcast. A lot of you guys probably don't know, but football is kind of getting a big thing here in Germany. We're also going to have a game this year in Munich, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, just excited to talk football. If some of you guys do enjoy what I'm talking about, you can check out my Instagram. It's at Bandwagonfootballpodcast. We do try to post in English and in German, so all of the people around the world can understand what we're talking about, because football is kind of like an international sport, or it's becoming to be. So we're trying to be international with our podcast as well.
Yeah, talking about the game in Germany this year, I think it's the Buccaneers. I don't think they've scheduled their opponent yet, but it looks like the Buccaneers are going to be playing in Germany. Yeah. How excited for that game are you?
I'm really excited. Even more excited now that Tom Brady decided to unretire. I think a lot of German fans are really happy about that, to see the greatest football player of all time in the first game in Germany. I think it's a really big step for the sport in Germany and all the people here. I'm also going to try to be there. Probably going to be hard to get tickets, but I'm really excited for that. I think it's just going to be a big event, kind of like the games in London. They're like more of the whole week is a party in London, a football party. It's a celebration. And I think it's just great for the sport of football.
Yeah, and of course, I think it's the first time the NFL is going back to Germany since 2006, when they had NFL Europa or NFL like World Football League or whatever. So, that's going to be really exciting. And yeah, especially with Tom Brady coming back, that makes it a lot more interesting. And let's just talk about the news of the day. Now, the time of this recording was Wednesday, so the video should be coming out Friday. The audio should be coming out Wednesday sometime. But Tyrek Hill has demanded a trade, and the Chiefs are going to allow him to seek a trade, it looks like. Supposedly, according to rumors, the Dolphins and Jets are all in on Tyrek Hill. First of all, how surprised are you with Tyrek Hill wanting out of Kansas City?
I just saw it on my phone driving home, getting ready for this podcast, and I was really surprised. That was something I did not expect in this crazy offseason that it's already been. I think we already had like eight or nine trades. Sorry, somebody was ringing my doorbell just now. But yeah, we've already had a bunch of trades. A bunch of big names have switched teams, and Tyrek Hill is most certainly among those people. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and I just couldn't believe it, quite frankly. He's been a big part of that Kansas City offense and a big part of the success that Patrick Mahomes has had.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tyrek Hill. And I'm just like you. I'm surprised. I thought the Chiefs had enough money, but I guess if you give Patrick Mahomes the money they gave him 2 years ago, someone was eventually going to go. And of course, they still have Travis Kelce. They brought in Juju Smith-Schuster. I think they recently signed Corey Coleman. They did lose a few running backs, or a few receivers like Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson, but it will be interesting. And a team like the Dolphins kind of makes sense. They always go hardcore in free agency. They've already done a bunch of moves already. They just recently signed Tyron Armstead from the Saints. And if they get Tyrek Hill along with Jalen Waddle and Devontae Parker, they could be a scary duo. Not sure if Tua is the quarterback next year, because they did bring in Bridgewater. So we'll see who wins that quarterback battle. But yeah, the Dolphins, interesting. The Jets, they definitely need some help losing Jamison Crowder. Zach Wilson wasn't the best last year, but he didn't have a lot of really options to throw to. So it will be interesting to see what happens with Hill. But again, I'm stunned as well. And I think he said that he deserves just as much money as Devonta Adams, which I do think somewhere around there. He's a top 5, maybe even top 3 receiver. So, I mean, the pay is going to be huge, I think. So we'll see what happens with Hill. And hopefully he's still not traded by the time this comes out, which I'm assuming it's going to be. So this is going to look a little slow or a little late, but we'll see what happens. Another guy that was on the move this week on Monday, Matt Ryan, is officially out of Atlanta, and now he's going to Indianapolis. It's crazy. This is the 5th quarterback the Colts have had the last 5 years. But before we talk about that, what did you think about Matt Ryan to Indy?
I think it's a great move for Indianapolis. Most people believe Matt Ryan is kind of washed. I think he's had it pretty tough in Atlanta. Not a lot of weapons around him with Julio leaving last season, and the offensive line was also pretty terrible. I think he's amongst the most pressured quarterbacks in the NFL, and he most certainly should have more protection in Indianapolis, and also a way better running game with Jonathan Taylor there, who should take a lot of pressure off Matt Ryan. I think he could be like a kind of the Phillip Rivers type, or what Phillip Rivers was in Indianapolis. But I think Matt Ryan is still a pretty good quarterback. The game last season against the Jets, I think he played a really, really good game. I think he can still be that quarterback, and the Colts don't have to pay him all the money. The Falcons are taking most of the money of his contract on their books. I think it's the highest, how do you call it, highest dead money ever. So that's really crazy. I think the Falcons are the biggest loser in that trade. I think they're heading straight towards rebuild with that trade. They got Marcus Mariota on a signing short after that, so he's going to be their quarterback for next year. But he also has no weapons with Calvin Ridley gone after him starting to gamble on football games. Yeah, but I'm happy for Indianapolis. They really needed that move. They needed somebody in there. I think he's going to make less mistakes than Carson Wentz did last year, which is important for them because they are more of a run-based team with a good defense. So I think he can keep them in a lot of games.
Yeah, and it's crazy, too, because they only had to give up a 3rd-round pick. And as you mentioned, they don't have to pay all that money the Falcons are going to pay. So,
I don't want to interrupt you right now, but I just got a message on my phone. Tyreek Hill is traded to Miami.
Oh, wow.
A blockbuster trade. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good win for the Dolphins. Do you know what the package was? I'm assuming it was a 1st-round pick, or...
Yeah, it has to be. Adam Schefter reported it. I'm looking right now to see what happened. But you mentioned Miami as a possible destination. It's a 2022 1st-round pick, number 29, a 2nd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick, as well as a 4th-round pick next year and a 6th-round pick next year, which is, I think that's not that much actually for Tyreek Hill. He's been one of the best receivers in the NFL. They have to give him a new contract, but with the salary cap right now, I think it's doable. It's just a question, do you want to pay that type of money for a wide receiver? And now they have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. That's a lot of speed. And now Tua just has to get a little bit more arm under that ball.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. But yeah, that does seem kind of like a low trade, to be honest with you. But if I'm the Dolphins, I give Tyreek Hill what he wants. I mean, I think, in my opinion, I think he is a top 3 receiver. Well, actually, probably top 5 because, like I said, there's DeAndre Hopkins, Devonta Adams, Cooper Kupp, but he's probably somewhere in that 4 to 5 range. So, I mean, that's a good move for the Dolphins, good move for the Dolphins. And the Dolphins definitely made moves this offseason. They again added Tyreek Hill. They went out and added, I think, Tyron Armstead on Tuesday night, or it was either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. Then they brought in another receiver, Cedric Wills from Dallas. They brought in Chase Edmonds from Arizona. So they made a lot of moves this offseason, especially with the new head coach. We'll see how good he is. But, I mean, who do you think won that trade between the Chiefs and Dolphins?
Oh, I think the Chiefs are a clear loser in that one. I think the biggest loser in all that is Patrick Mahomes, because he doesn't have that much weapons to throw to now, and that AFC West has gotten really, really stacked over the last couple of weeks with all the quarterback trades that have gotten on. The Chargers got Khalil Mack. So it's going to be really tough for Patrick Mahomes to keep up in that AFC West.
Yeah, especially how good the Raiders got, the Chargers got. The Broncos got Russell Wilson. We'll see what happens there. But let's continue with Matt Ryan. I kind of want to talk about Devonta Adams after this. But Matt Ryan goes to Indianapolis pretty much for just a third-round pick. Again, I just mentioned 5 quarterbacks in 5 years. Matt Ryan will be their 5th quarterback in 5 years for the Colts. Now, of course, the Falcons did go ahead and sign Marcus Mariota. Do you think the Falcons go out and draft a quarterback this year? I think they have, I think they have the 11th pick or 10th pick. I can't remember exactly what pick they have, but do you think they go out and draft a quarterback?
I'm not sure right now, too, which pick they have, because I think 11 is I think they might have to trade up if they have the 11th pick to get the quarterback they want. I think Malik Willis, he had his pro day the other day. Pretty impressive showing on that one. I think he's going to go higher than a lot of people expect. I think we might see 1 or 2 QBs at least go in the top 10. I think the Falcons, they might be. I think actually Malik Willis is an underrated quarterback. We all say it's not a good quarterback class, but we also said that about the quarterback class that had Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in it, and we see how that turned out. So I think if the Falcons like a quarterback, they're going to go aggressive to get him.
Yeah, and of course, Malik Willis. I think Kenny Pickett is now starting to get back up there on the draft boards, and you got like Sam Howell, and then Matt Corral, and then I believe there's a few other guys like Carson Strong could sneak in that first round. Of course, there's Sam Howell too. But I think Atlanta. I don't know if exactly what quarterback they'd go after. I think Marcus Mariota is just a bridge quarterback, similar to what the Steelers, when the Steelers signed Mitchell Trubisky, I think he's kind of the same way. I think he's just a bridge quarterback. And of course, if they can't get Malik Willis, I think Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett would be your second best option. But I really think Kenny Pickett's going to end up going to the Steelers. I think the Steelers would love to get Kenny Pickett to replace Ben Roethlisberger. Do you think the Steelers would have to trade up to get Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, I think they might have to trade up to get him. How crazy this offseason has been already. I think the draft is also going to be pretty crazy. I think a lot of things are going to happen that we don't expect, or now we probably should expect them with how the NFL is going. And as I said, I think there's going to be 1 or 2 quarterbacks at least going in that top 10, and the Steelers might have to go up there and get him. I might add, I'm not big on Kenny Pickett. I think his hand size is a little worrying to me personally, but I'm sure one team will fall in love with him.
Yeah, I mean, you always see that, like, as you mentioned just a second ago, a lot of times they say the quarterback class is not very good, but then at the same time, the teams that need a quarterback or the quarterback needy teams usually outweigh that. So quarterbacks always usually go higher than they're really ranked, right? Because they're the quarterback or whatever. And a lot of people consider a guy like a second or third round pick, and they end up being the first round. I think there's been a few players. I think Mahomes at one time was a second or third round pick, and he went 10th overall. And then, same thing with Lamar Jackson. I think they graded him in the second round. He ended up going in the first round. So I think a lot of times too, and, quarterbacks take longer to develop, but at the same time, usually the quarterback needy teams outweigh it. And usually, like I said, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, they proved it that they were worth the first round pick. So, I mean, you always kind of see that, but Kenny Pickett's hand size, that is a little worrying, but I think he should be fine. I'm not sure. There's a few quarterbacks I know that have small hands. I can't think of them right now, but of course a big hand, helps more, but I think Kenny Pickett will be able to still play well despite the hand size. But, it just depends on what team he goes to and how they surround him with talent. Another guy that's on the move, Deshaun Watson, is officially going to Cleveland, which probably means that Baker Mayfield's either going to be traded or released. I doubt he's going to stay in Cleveland. But what did you think about the Deshaun Watson trade to Cleveland?
Yeah, the Deshaun Watson topic is also a very sensitive subject. With still ongoing civil cases, it's really hard for me to say what I think about it. I think a lot of teams kind of took an L on that one in even trying to trade for Deshaun Watson, because they kind of showed the public, okay, we don't really care about that matter. It's way more important to us to have a good team, and I think, yeah, it's hard for a lot of people in that organization. A lot of women coaches now in the NFL. I think also on the Cleveland Browns. I don't know how they feel about that trade. I hear a lot of Cleveland fans are pretty outraged of that trade. Yeah, it's tough. I don't know how you see that as a Cleveland fan. Are you still a fan of the Browns? Are you a fan of Deshaun Watson? Do you just ignore all the stuff going on with him? I mean, he's a good quarterback. I think nobody can deny that fact, and I think he's going to win a lot of games for the Browns. I think they've done a good job overhauling their offense, getting Amari Cooper in there. They might even add another receiver. I heard Odell might be interested going back to the Browns now that Deshaun Watson is there. But then again, you have that Thanos meme, I've won, but at what cost? So it's kind of hard to put that in perspective.
Yeah, we'll talk about Amari Cooper in just a sec here, but how long? I mean, it's pretty much a given that Deshaun Watson's going to be suspended. But how long do you think he's suspended? Because I could see him getting suspended for 8-9 games. How many games do you think he'll be suspended for the 2022 season?
Yeah, that's also a hard thing to put in perspective, because the NFL with their suspensions, they have been pretty random. All that time, he also could have been put on the commissioner exempt list, which he has not been put on. I think players have been put on for a lot less. Calvin Ridley got suspended for a whole season on gambling. And then you have to weigh what you think is worse. I think having like over 20 civil suits of what he's been charged to, I think he should be suspended for at least a whole season. But then again, I don't think he will be. I think he's going to get 6 games at least. That's been like kind of the line with Ezekiel Elliott as well. He also got suspended for 6 games. Yeah, I can't really say how much. I hope he gets suspended for a season. I think that'd be the correct thing to do. But you never know with the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I think Cleveland did extend his contract for 5 years. So if he's like suspended a whole year, he still has 4 years left on that deal. And I think this Browns signed Jacoby Brissett to be their backup. And even if Baker Mayfield, even if they didn't sign Brissett, I doubt Mayfield would even want to return to Cleveland, because he's pretty pissed right now. So anyway, speaking of Baker Mayfield, I mean, supposedly there's not a lot of options right now. There's not a lot of teams interested. I'm kind of surprised that the Giants or Panthers or even the Lions haven't shown any interest. But what do you think? What team do you think is best for Baker Mayfield at this point?
Yeah, the Colts was a team that Baker Mayfield at least wanted to go to. That was a team that and now the options, as you say, they've kind of depleted. Not a lot of quarterback needy teams left. A lot of guys like the Steelers, they might be a team that needs a quarterback, but they kind of got their bridge guy and Mitchell Trubisky. I think they want to go for a legit franchise quarterback, maybe in this draft or the next one. The Panthers are a team I've thought about. I think he would be a good landing spot, but I think the Panthers also, they want to get their franchise QB for the future. Giants, problem with the Giants is they don't have a lot of cap room at the moment to really make a move for another player. I think he's on his 5th-year option too, Baker Mayfield. So he costs quite a bit of money. Yeah, it's going to be hard for the Browns. I've also read that the Browns, the teams asked the Browns to take on the salary of Baker Mayfield, or give them a pick if they take on Baker Mayfield. So it's not going to be easy to get rid of Baker Mayfield. A pretty uncomfortable situation that the Browns put themselves in.
Yeah, and of course he was hurt too when Deshaun Watson officially said no, he didn't want to be traded, and then Mayfield asked for a trade because he was mad that the Browns were looking at other quarterbacks. And then, they gave enough money to Watson to where he changed his mind. So it's a bit interesting. Mayfield, I don't think he's a bust, but I don't think he ever lived up to that number one pick. Yeah, he had a good rookie year. He did win a playoff game 2 years ago almost, but he's just his second and fourth year where there was a lot to be desired. Yes, he was injured last year, but he hasn't quite reached that status like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, other guys that were drafted in his draft. He did win a playoff game, but they have a really good roster, and I think that was one of the reasons why. But the Browns made another move. They traded for Amari Cooper. It looks like Jarvis Landry wants to come back after they released him because he wants to play with Deshaun Watson. I guess there's still a chance for Odell Beckham to come back. But how well do you think Cooper will do in Cleveland now that he has Deshaun Watson? And, we don't know how long he's going to be suspended, but how well do you think Amari Cooper will do in Cleveland?
I think when he's paired with Deshaun Watson, he will do a really good. He's going to become a true number one again. Last year in Dallas, I think he was kind of unhappy with that situation as well, with CeeDee Lamb becoming more of a star in Dallas, and maybe more of the number one option for Dak Prescott there in Dallas. But I think they could be a good tandem together. Other than Amari Cooper right now, you say Jarvis Landry might come back, OBJ maybe, but other than Amari Cooper right now, they don't have a lot of receivers left, so he kind of has to carry that team. Deshaun Watson has also done a good job, I think, with receivers that are really good running their routes, and Amari Cooper is certainly one of them.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good trade. They didn't have to give up that much, and I think it was mostly because the Cowboys were already thinking about releasing him, so the Cowboys were just happy to trade him. I think it was like a 5th and 6th round pick, and they got Cooper and like a 6th round pick later. So I think it was a pretty good deal. Now, if they sign Jarvis Landry, I think they're solid. They did release Austin Hooper, and they still have David Njoku, but they have, of course, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, one of the two best duos for running backs and one of the top duos in the league. So I think they're fine. I think Amari Cooper's a great ad. We'll see what happens. Of course, he kind of became kind of the afterthought with the emergence of CeeDee Lamb, as you mentioned. But do you think Cooper will get back to possibly being a top 10 receiver? And he's still very young. He's 27, so he's still got a lot of years left. But do you think this year he can become a top 10 receiver?
Yeah, this year might be hard. As we talked about, Deshaun Watson might be suspended. I think Jacoby Brissett is most certainly not the best option at quarterback. I think he could become one of the better receivers. He's also fought through a lot of injuries. Also with Amari Cooper, I kind of get the feeling that his heart, and a lot of people have talked about this, that his heart is kind of not 100% in football. I don't think he has that drive, but maybe if they can get a good core around him, like Jarvis Landry and stuff, I think that would help him to become a better receiver again.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. A lot of things could happen this year. Of course, Deshaun Watson, still not sure if he's going to play this year or not. So we'll see what happens there. Another receiver that's on the move that, again, shocked everybody when the trade happened, Devonta Adams to the Raiders. Were you surprised that Devonta Adams and Aaron Rodgers didn't have that good of a relationship as it was reported?
Yeah, I was completely shocked, as I was with the Tyreek Hill move that just happened a couple moments ago. I did not think that would happen, especially after Aaron Rodgers reported that he's going to come back for another season or extend his contract with the Packers. I think that Devonta Adams on an extension was a lock for the Packers. I actually thought that was one of the reasons why Rodgers said, okay, I'm going to come back, because the Packers are going to keep Devonta Adams. And now the Packers have a big problem at wide receiver because they really never had anybody other than Adams anyway. They have Waldes Scantling and a couple of other guys in there too, but not a true number one receiver. Adams had over 30% of the targets of the whole Green Bay offense, and that leaves a huge hole in Green Bay. I think it's going to be hard for Aaron Rodgers to find a new guy. So this might finally be the year that the Packers draft a first-round receiver for Rodgers. I think there's a couple good options there in the draft. Olave is a guy I really like, so maybe they can get a replacement through that. I think that's the hope, at least in Green Bay. And then on the other side, I mean, the Raiders, I think it's a steal. You had to give up a lot, but to get one of the best or the best wide receiver in the NFL, even if you have to pay him the money, I think you can have enough good players. And the draft is also a gamble every year. You never know what you're going to get. You never know. Even the best players in the draft sometimes don't turn out to be the stars you suppose they are. So Adams, I think, is a great addition in Las Vegas. And that Carr-Adams connection from college, I think we're going to have a lot of fun with that next season.
Yeah, and on top of that, the Raiders still have Darren Waller, a very good tight end, in my opinion, probably the third best tight end in the league. Then you have Josh Jacobs, a solid running back. The offensive line, I'm not exactly sure. I think they do need to shore it up a little bit. But their defense, they got Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. This AFC West just looks scary. And I think the Chiefs are going to win the division, but with them losing Tyrek Hill, that's going to be big. Now, they did add Smith-Schuster, but that AFC West is stacked. And back on the Packers side, there's still some decent receivers. At the time of this recording, Julio Jones is still available. Jarvis Landry is still available. Odell Beckham is available. Now, Odell Beckham is going to be out probably for the first few weeks, maybe even the first half of the year. But there's still a lot of decent options for the Packers. Now, they don't like to go out and sign. I know there was talks about them trading for Tyrek Hill, according to reports, but I don't think they wanted to give up as much. And of course, as you mentioned, they could finally draft a receiver this year. They have four picks in the first two rounds. And with how deep the wide receiver class is, they would be fine to get probably a receiver in both rounds. So we'll see what happens there. I think if they added Julio Jones and then drafted a receiver, then again, you have Marquez Valdes-Scantling, you have Alan Lazard. You have some decent weapons there. They brought back Robert Tonyan. But we'll see what happens there. It's going to be interesting to see if Rodgers can find that weapon like he had with Devonte Adams. And another trade too that happened that we haven't really talked much about, but Russell Wilson a few weeks ago was traded to the Broncos. How well do you think Denver will do this year? Because the AFC West, as we just mentioned, is stacked. But Denver looks like they finally got their quarterback, but how well do you think Wilson will do in his first year in the Mile High City?
Yeah, the trades have been crazy this year. Russell Wilson to the Broncos, one of the biggest trades, but I almost forgot about that after everything that happened the last couple of weeks. I think that was the move the Broncos had to make. They were missing a playmaker quarterback. They have a lot of pieces around him. They have a really good offense. They have a good offensive line. Javonte Williams has shown flashes, I think. I think he can be a good running back. And also the receivers are really good. Jerry Jeudy, who was a first-round pick a couple years ago, a good receiver. And they also have Cortland Sutton in there. And then KJ Hamler, which is a kind of a speedster wide receiver. I think he's maybe my late-round fantasy advice, or maybe a little early fantasy advice, because the connection that Wilson had with Tyler Lockett in Seattle was a great connection. I think Hamler and him might have a similar connection in Denver. And the defense is also really good for the Broncos. So I think Wilson, who hasn't been the great quarterback we know him for the last 2 years, I think he's took a slight decline in his play. He doesn't even have to be that guy because he has a defense that can keep him in games. I think if he can minimize his mistakes and make some of the big plays we know him for, I think the Broncos are in play to win that division, which we mentioned a couple of times is a pretty tough one.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you kind of forgot about the thing. I kind of forgot about it too. Another trade that I forgot that we're going to talk about here soon is Carson Wentz, the Commanders. I kind of forgot about that one. But yeah, the Broncos, they finally have they were decent last year, but of course, they had Teddy Bridgewater. He went out. Drew Lock came in. We'll see how good Drew Lock does in Seattle. I think he's another bridge quarterback probably. But We'll see what happens with Denver. They've had how many quarterbacks? Like 12 quarterbacks since Peyton Manning. So I think they finally found their guy. It's interesting too. Russell Wilson beat the Broncos in Super Bowl 48, and now he's going to be with them. I think that was the first player to get traded to the team he beat in the Super Bowl. So our first quarterback at least. So we'll see what happens there. All right. So again, thanks for coming on, Tristin. It's been great. Before we go, what do you think about Carson Wentz to the Commanders? Do you think he'll finally be able to get back to the playoffs, or do you think he'll just have the same year he had with Indianapolis? What do you think about Carson Wentz to the Commanders overall?
Yeah, I think the Commanders, which the Commanders is also a hard thing to kind of say. It's weird, but I think they kind of jumped the gun on that one. I think Baker Mayfield, who is now still available, is actually a better option than Carson Wentz is. And I think they kind of panicked after their first two options with Wilson and Rodgers didn't pan out, and they jumped the gun, tried to get the only quarterback who was available at that time with Wentz, and now all the other things happened with Deshaun Watson suddenly coming available, and now Baker Mayfield. Matt Ryan, I think, would have also been a better option for them. So, yeah, I think I don't think it's a good move for them. I'm not a big fan of Carson Wentz. I think his chance was last year in Indianapolis with Frank Reich. That connection was supposed to be a match made in heaven, and I think he just proved that he's not the guy last year, and now he's on the Commanders, and yeah.
I mean, the NFC East isn't like as terrible as it was, because last year there was 2 playoff teams, but he has a chance to win that division. Again, I don't know what we're going to see with Dallas, because they made a plethora of changes this year because they couldn't really afford most of their top players. But, he's a bit streaky, and I was a fan of Wentz, and I thought he would do well with the Colts, but I was completely wrong about that. We'll see what happens there. I definitely think the Eagles can't wait to get revenge on Carson Wentz, and I think he as well. That will definitely be a game that most people will circle on their calendar when he returns to Philly for the first time. And I think he also plays the Colts this year too, so I think he probably has that one circled. But I just don't know about the trade, really. I think the Cowboys will probably end up winning the NFC East again, but they'll probably disappoint in the playoffs like they always do. But I think it's still too early to tell. But yeah, it is interesting that you mentioned that Baker Mayfield would have been a better option. I disagree, but again, we'll see what happens. I think it's too early to tell. But I do think you're right. I think Washington was a little antsy, and they got a little, flustered. And there was, according to reports, it is hard to say Commanders, but there was, according to reports, that said they basically talked to every team in the NFL before they made the trade for Wentz about what quarterbacks they were interested. They even called the Chiefs and said, would they be interested in trading Patrick Mahomes, according to reports, which the Chiefs probably shut down immediately. But, I think they did jump the gun a little bit. But, he does have some weapons there. He's got Curtis Samuel. He's got Terry. He's got Scary Terry. He's got a decent tight end in Jordan Reed. The running game is all right. So the defense, of course, if they can stay healthy. But we'll see. I do think they have a big chance of making the playoffs, but the Eagles still, I'm not sure what they're going to do yet, if they're going to keep Jalen Hurts or not, but we'll see what happens there. It seems like they're going to. So again, thanks for coming on. Tristin, is there anything else you want to add before we end the show?
No, thank you very much for having me on. It's been fun talking about all the trades that have been going on in the NFL. It's been really crazy. And I can't wait for anything else to happen in this offseason. You said the Chiefs probably shut down the Mahomes trade really quick, but now with them trading Tyreek Hill, I think anything is possible right now in the NFL. So I'm just excited for everything else to happen. Again, if you want to check out my content and you don't speak German, just follow us on Instagram at Bandwagonfootballpodcast. We're going to try to post a lot of draft content there also. So if you're interested in that, follow us. Thank you for having me on. It's been fun talking football. And yeah, maybe I can come on sometime again and we can talk some ball again. That'd be fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in thought. I'll probably put you on before the NFL season starts in 2022, maybe before the preseason starts. But again, yeah, check out the Bandwagon Football Podcast. We down in the description below as always. And yeah, we'll see. Of course, it all goes to show you with the Tyrek Hill trade. It's all about money, pretty much. So we'll see what happens there. So again, thanks for coming on, Tristin, and have a wonderful day, and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye.